welcome everyone. I apologize. I'm having internet issues today. So if I freeze or you can't hear me, I'm sorry. We're having it fixed today. But my name is Jan Lehman, and I'm super happy you're here for our webinar series. And with me is my amazing team, Nancy Kreschke and Arnie House. I am an executive coach, a productivity consultant. Both Arnie and Nancy are experts in Microsoft 365. Nancy is our training extraordinaire. She has the patience of a saint to work with all levels of technical competency. And Arnie is our business process improvement guru. So we're very, very blessed to have a nice combination of skills on the team. And if you're new to us, this is our webinar series. We've been doing it close to 2 years at this point. And our intention is really, well, I should say the way we structure this is we're going to do half hour of content, and then we'll open it up for optional Q&A. So if that's just sort of how we structure it. So feel free to enter questions throughout the time that we're talking in the chat. That works great. Next month, I'm backing up. This month, we're actually focused on EOS, and Arnie's going to be explaining what the heck EOS is when he gets into his talk. But next month, we're actually going to be talking about how to leverage SharePoint to efficiently manage information. So the conversation today is about SharePoint. The one next month is about SharePoint. As Arnie has helped me realize, SharePoint is an amazingly powerful tool, and most companies barely use it. They use it as a kind of a data repository. And so we're going to be learning a lot this month and next month about SharePoint. And then in May, Nancy's going to be back up. And one of the things we pay attention to as productivity consultants is what are time-consuming repetitive tasks that our clients are doing. And whenever we see that, we want to look for opportunity to optimize and automate. And so we're going to look for technology. So Nancy's going to share with us some ideas on how to do that with 365. And Nancy just entered into chat some links. So if you are curious about our past recordings, you can go out to our website, check those out. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. In addition, if you like the advice today, you might want to sign up for our newsletter so you can find out about future webinars that are coming up. Included in that are our blogs. We definitely do a lot around how to help leaders be more effective in their role on the non-technical side as well. And there's a couple links in there for the next 2 webinars. So feel free to click on any of those links and sign up for stuff. Oh, go ahead and go back, please.
Oops.
I was pausing for YouTube. So I want to explain kind of what we do. There's a lot of, I'd say, tutorials out there on what are the bells and whistles on all the different 365 apps. The way we really approach this area of our work is very different because we're really looking to connect the dots for our clients on what are those big issues that most of our clients are having, and how can we maybe potentially leverage technology to streamline them. And so this is a list of common issues we see with most organizations, and 365 is perfectly positioned to help really solve a lot of those. And switch. We also, all of us have learned that 365 is really helping us work in this hybrid and remote world. So it alone just really helps us improve our ability to work in a mobile workforce, which is great. And these are some statistics about the benefits of 365. And we always joke, we don't work for Microsoft. We really should or should be paid by them, but we just believe in the suite of software they've put together. But these are some stats about the power of Microsoft Teams. My favorite on here is the last one about close to 19% reduction in meetings. We are seeing great ROI in all the work we're doing with our clients on 365. We just had a client last month that said their volume of emails has gone down from 60 to 70% down because of the use of Microsoft 365 and the suite of communication and collaboration tools. So super happy you're here to learn a little bit more about what's possible in your organization. On that note, I'll turn over to Arnie to kick us off.
All right, thanks, Jan. Again, I'm Arnie House. My background is process improvement, and I have worked with managers for over 30 years. And I've noticed some overwhelming problems that they have, and they seem to all have a similar root cause when it comes to managing a business. So I put this slide up here because one of my favorite words of all time is disparate. Jan pronounce it disparate. And as you can see, both ways are proper. In Minnesota, they say disparate. In Indiana, we say disparate. I think it's related to the word disparity. So I don't know, probably the Minnesota way is better. But Nancy
hates the word, so we all have an opinion about it.
And she's cringed and turned off her speakers right now. Excuse me. But she says, Arnie, this disparate, nobody knows what it is. It's too, just say different. Well, Jan and I outvoted her, and we both like this word. We do see it a lot of times in different books that we read, and I think it's a more powerful word than difference, and I'm going to convince Nancy one of these days. But I'd call your attention to the number 2 meaning, which says containing or composed of dissimilar or opposing elements. Opposing, things work against each other, they're not connected. So as I go through these slides, try to keep that word in the back of your mind. I'll use it a few times. I'll probably still say disparate, even though I'm going to try to move to saying disparate. And I'll explain EOS shortly in case you don't know what EOS is, but whether you use EOS to manage your business or not, business schools and people who learn business on their own, read the books, they know that most businesses, it's good practice to have a vision and mission, goals, and measure your business to see where you're going, how well you're doing. And also as a part of business, you've got to track the issues that are getting in your way. And I don't have it on here, but you also want to track the opportunities that you see. You want to track the tasks, and with all the business unique processes that you have, you need to track those, whether it's inventory, but you're not big enough to have some fancy inventory tracking software, or in the power industry where I came from, you track what's called lockout tagout. Very important. We use SharePoint for that, by the way. It's some good functionality, but regardless, you've got to generally do these things to run your business. And and one thing I want to mention too, let me back up a little bit, is in business school, they teach you all this stuff, but they cannot teach you the technology to make these things work for you. Because the technology changes too fast. And unfortunately, the leaders and business owners, most of them are over 45, 50 years old. Back when we got our start in business, or when we were in college, it was email and Excel. Oh my gosh, Symphony. You don't remember Symphony, but the technology just changes. So leaders use what they're familiar with, which is generally email and Excel. But what is EOS? It stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System, and it comes from a book called Traction by Gino Wickman. I actually didn't read this until the middle of last year when Jan recommended it. And a lot of it I had seen before, because like I said, in 30 years, vision, mission, all that stuff, I'd been around it. But what I love about the Traction book is it gives a good, in my opinion, meeting format, meeting regimen, to where you keep track of those things, and verbally it stays in front of you. But the book talks about paper copies and such, but I'll get to the technology of running that stuff in about 3 slides, I think. But before I get there,
I'm going to interrupt you real quick if I could. So Tim Ellis is on the call. Tim's actually a resident EOS expert. So Tim, so happy you're here. Would love your input as we go through. We are huge fans of EOS. We love the way they've marketed it and pulled it all together. And anyway, so thanks, Tim, for being here.
Glad to be here.
hi, Tim.
Alrighty.
Okay, so I did a little bit of internet research. I thought I talked about leaders so far, but what do employees believe? So I found some surveys, and one of the surveys I found said that most employees, well, 74% believe they're missing out on important information. My experience backs that up. Another 72% don't understand their company's business strategy. I would even argue that some of them have never heard the strategy, let alone understand it. And 57% of employees say they're not given clear directions. That's probably a lower number because, they do have meetings and there are directions, but they're not always clear. And sometimes those directions don't even align with the goals and the strategies because there's if you have multi-levels in an organization, they're just not well aligned. And we're going to get into that with SharePoint and how SharePoint can tie those strategies and daily actions together. But what do leaders believe? I didn't have to look up stats on that one because I've worked with hundreds of managers over 30 years, and almost every one of them believe their message isn't getting out. They're at a loss how to make it happen. And again, they're using old technologies, email, Excel files buried in shared drives. That just doesn't get the message out there. And why is that? Well, my theory is most of the information that business leaders come up with, not to mention all the employees that work for them, this is what their information storage looks like. And you can see there are a lot of different boxes and such that kind of, remember the word disparate, that each of those boxes represent different apps. There, I used Nancy's word, different, but regardless, you get the point. So let's say, your mission and vision is stuck in that container there. Your long-term goals are in the cardboard box. I don't know how many times I worked with leaders who, they went off site. They maybe traveled to a distant hotel and resort and came up with their annual goals and their mission, their vision. And then they're fired up about them. They don't get communicated. Along about February, that's starting to be a distant memory. And then in September, October, they start thinking, oh, the new year's coming up. Oh man, we didn't even look at our long-term goals or our short-term goals. So, there's the short-term goals in that box, the metrics and scorecards, important part of the business, but they're not out in front of people usually. They track their issues here if they track them at all. Task tracking is a huge inefficiency. The tasks aren't out in front of people. Oh, there's some more over there and it's in a different format. They're keeping tasks in two different directions, two different places. And truth be known, most employees don't even look at a committee or a department's tasks because they don't look at them until the morning of the meeting. And they didn't get them done or they didn't put a lot of thought into completing them. We've all seen it before. Well, when that happens, running a company or managing employees is just pretty much like herding cats. There's just not much need in even having strategies and goals because the employees don't see them and they're not all working the same direction. So fortunately, Microsoft and 365 makes managing a business and keeping things from being disparate. There, I said it Jan's way, that's good. It makes it easy. It connects things. Matter of fact, I looked up Microsoft 365's or Microsoft's definition of 365, and it said it's a suite of apps that help you stay connected and get things done. Well, it is that. That's nice. And I suppose that describes the whole package together. But for the sake of this managing a business presentation, I wanted to eliminate a couple words and make it meet our needs a little better. 365 is a suite of apps that help things stay connected. But what is SharePoint? I've worked with SharePoint it's been around, I think, since 2001. I started working with it in 2003. It's been around almost forever for me, and it's second nature to me. But Jan said, Arnie, yeah, but a lot of people don't know what SharePoint is or what it does. So what is it? Well, in my opinion, it's the greatest, most underused app in Microsoft's history. Companies who do use it don't use it well, but Microsoft says it's intelligent intranet. I say you can use it to build incredibly useful interactive web page. Most people know how to use the internet, but companies internally don't do a good job of creating web pages and websites that rival the functionality that you see out on the general internet. You can use SharePoint to build incredibly useful interactive web pages And it's awesome I mean, it's a beast for bringing information together, disparate information.
One of the questions we have, we won't answer it now, but just to start for you to think about is somebody's asking for a comparison of the Google world to the Microsoft world with SharePoint. So it's a great question. Thanks, Mel. So we'll have that near the end.
Did you say Google?
Google Drive versus kind of what Microsoft's database, whatever we know about it. So.
Okay, great. Yeah, bring that up and we'll tackle that. So here's an example of tying disparate information together. Employees generally are paid to do tasks. That's why you have them there. In the day-to-day world of fighting fires, you tend to lose track of the forest for the trees. Well, how about if we tied those together with issues and goals? The tasks that you're doing, you can see what goals and what issues, and I don't have it on here, but what opportunities those tasks are meant to help with. SharePoint can do that. For example, right here, this is what is called a SharePoint list. Lists are, I said SharePoint is the most underused application out there. Within SharePoint, custom lists, which is what this is, are even more underused. Most companies don't even know they're there. So this is a task list, and I've highlighted the tasks in yellow so that they stand out. And you can see how they are rolled up under the associated 90-day goals. And if you use EOS 90-day goals, that's called rocks. But in this demo, since not everybody uses EOS, I wanted to call them goals because everybody knows what those are. So again, it ties them together in a very logical fashion. And the possibilities are endless because this list can be customized infinitely, and you could create views which can be tailored to each person's role in the organization. And believe it or not, that's not even the most useful use of SharePoint. Right here is what I call a dashboard, but it's just a web page that brings together a lot of disparate information. It's going a little fast, but don't worry, we'll take a little tour at the end. And oh, down here's some metrics at the bottom. So now let's move on to Teams. We encourage everybody to make Teams the hub of all of your office activity. And it's my belief that employees should very, very rarely leave their Teams interface because all of the 365 apps can be rolled into it. And it's tremendous. Microsoft hit a home run with Teams. But in this case, you can see in the red circle, we have what's called an EOS channel. If you don't use EOS, you could call it management processes, whatever makes sense to you. And here's how it looks on mobile. 365 and Teams is very mobile friendly. But over here, further to the right, you'll see all the tabs that you need if you are a manager managing a business. You see in that red box, metrics, weekly meeting agenda, 1-year goals, 90-day goals, etc. It's all right there in one place. Teams brings it together. And there are those same tabs on mobile.
Perfect. Arnie, we go back to the channel thing. I just want to interject a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And go back to the slide before where it's circling. One of the things we're noticing, even one more slide, thanks. One of the things we're noticing, we're often coming into companies that have started to use 365. We're peeking under the hood to see how they've set it up. We're finding they don't always set it up properly and they're definitely underutilizing it. There's a lot of confusion about these, what Arnie has circled here. So these are channels. And so Arnie, explain what that is for people. So like,
Yeah.
I think our clients don't really get how you set up Teams, the base piece of Teams.
Yeah, great point. I'm glad you pointed that out. If you get into Teams, one of the big problems, well, a benefit of Teams is it is very easy to administer. One of its greatest problems is it's easy to administer because when you build it out, the most important step to implementing Teams or SharePoint, and I assume all the other apps, is you've got to have a plan up front. And that's where we can help a lot, is to come up with that strategy to where if you think naming the folders or arranging the top level folders on your shared drive is a difficult thing. Teams and SharePoint are so much more robust. It is important to nail these channels and these tabs early on. So yeah, it's easy to administer, but yet it's hard to administer because you can create a real bowl of spaghetti if there's not a strategy going in. But
Awesome.
once
Thanks,
done,
Arnie.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But once done, it is just an awesome tool. So I'm going to give how much time we got left? Not very
You're
long.
good. You're good. About 9 minutes, but
Okay, well, I am going to give a really fast tour of, well, Alt Tab. And my computer's freaking out. Hold on. Well, my computer's freaking out, so I'm just going to.
while you do that, I'll start to explain or give my opinion about Google versus SharePoint. And Nance, maybe you can chime in here. I can't speak to SharePoint versus Google's database environment. Oh, you're back, Arnie. I'll let you keep going.
I'm back, but yeah, we'll bring that question up a third time and we will get
Perfect.
to that. Nancy, make sure we don't forget.
Okay.
Okay, so right here, if you use EOS, and even if you don't, this is great, but if you use EOS, this is familiar to you. EOS calls it VTO, I believe it is. I can't even remember what that stands for, but you're familiar with it. But what it is just a high level glimpse of where you're going. I like to say this gray part with the vision, mission, 10-year goal and 3-year goals, those are longer term. I like to say that's where you're working on your business. That's more the CEO visionary type stuff, but you go down farther and here in the white, these 3 things, the 1-year goals, the rocks or 90-day goals, issues and opportunities, those are where you're working in your business, more the COO stuff. So look how not disparate and how tightly bound and how easy that is. It gets things right in front of everybody.
Yeah,
So-
Arnie,
I'm sorry.
Traction uses the Vision Traction Organizer 1-page document, which is equivalent to what you have there.
Okay, okay, I could not remember what the VTO stands for. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Sure.
But even if you don't use EOS, having this information tightly bound in 1 page is just awesome. And then you put this in your intranet site. Hopefully you have a good intranet site, which by the way, 365 and SharePoint can do awesome intranets. You can put that right there in front of people. You can put it in Teams where it's in front of people daily. Okay, so here's another thing. I have done agenda dashboards for 18 years in SharePoint, and there's some recent functionality in SharePoint Online that just really puts that on steroids. But here is an agenda for the weekly meeting that you can beam up, or virtual meetings you can share just like we're doing. And this is straight out of EOS. That's good stuff to know, again, whether you're using EOS or not. But this collapsible functionality is brand new, but there's the opening and the traction book. It says start off, what good news do you have to share? And then the scorecard, you see roll it, expand it. And this can be Power BI, it can be Excel, you can have multiple tabs, but all the information that you monitor. And this agenda is straight out of the traction book. The 90-day goals, look at this, it brings in that list. In this case, this is a fictional company for my personal farm, but you can see we have 3 rocks or 90-day goals. And this collapsible functionality is cool because in the old days, this page was about 10 feet long. So I love this new functionality. So there's the customer news and headlines. Yeah, my wife got promoted to assistant property manager, but that's a part of the weekly agenda. And then you cover tasks, which this pulls in from another list. And I made it to where overdue items are in red. So a quick view of that. And then these can be split out by departments as well. So again, issues and opportunities list, much like the task, conclusion. And then Gino Wickman says, hey, you need to rate every meeting so that we don't waste people's time. So another SharePoint list. At the end of the meeting, you just have everybody open right up to this form. they type in their number 1 to 10. And when it hits save, it all goes into a SharePoint list. So then you get a running trend of how well your meetings are doing. I actually just built that 1 or 2 days ago. And also quarterly and annual. So that's a quick overview of some of the things you can do with SharePoint to bring that disparate information together. Now let's talk about Google and questions. Nancy, timekeeper, just tell us how we're doing.
So Arnie, I want to make sure that I'm understanding when you were on that meeting one, all of the information on that page. So if you go back to that page, is coming from someplace else. So I'm not typing it twice.
Oh, good point, Nance. Yeah, that is one of the powers of SharePoint custom lists over Excel or pretty much any other app you can use. You enter at one time. For example, that rate the meeting form at the bottom, you enter at one time and the SharePoint administrator can reuse that exact information on 50 different web pages, can push it out via email. Microsoft has thought of all the things you might want to do, but good point. You enter at one time and SharePoint deals it out to wherever it's needed.
So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this section and then we'll open it up for Q&A. Just a comment about this again, as productivity consultants and business process improvement folks, we're always just looking at where our clients are wasting time, quite honestly. And so we've had a number of clients that have asked us to build this for them because they're realizing it's taking a ton of time to pull it together and maintain it. And so just a perfect example. Arnie, that was rock star, so good. Go ahead and go to the next slide if you don't mind. So a lot of people that find us and our webinars think all we do is 365. So just a couple slides about us. Yes, we definitely do a ton with 365. Again, we approach it from a business process improvement lens of what are the business issues you're trying to solve, and if technology can help, we'll pull it in. Otherwise, we don't just recommend technology. In addition to our 365 work and process improvement work, we do a lot of one-on-one coaching, training, public speaking on anything related toward productivity or being an effective leader. So these are some of our common topics that we end up doing. And just a reminder, again, and Nancy will enter into chat again, we've got the session in April on, again, another angle on how to leverage SharePoint. And then in May, we're going to have the one on how to schedule meetings with multiple people outside your organization. At that point, perfect timing. We'll open it back up for Q&A. And so if I could, I'll give my perspective, Mel, on kind of Google versus Microsoft. Now, keep in mind, we are completely biased individuals here. We love Microsoft. So, but I will tell you, just 2 years ago, we converted my business from Google to Microsoft. And the main reason for it is that Microsoft has really done a phenomenal job with integrating all of the various apps. Google historically plays very well with third-party applications, which is wonderful, but they are a bit disparate, if I can use Arnie's term. And so I think the advantage Microsoft has just in the whole suite is the tight integration and connection. As far as SharePoint versus what Google delivers, Arnie, I'd be curious what your thoughts are. What's funny about this space is Google came up with Google Drive many years ago, and Microsoft's like, holy crap, we're losing market share. We probably should do something similar. So they came up with OneDrive and SharePoint, but they are very different animals. So Arnie, I don't know how familiar you are with Google Drive.
Well, I was just gonna say, I am not familiar with Google at all, other than we've moved a lot of people over to 365, but I grew up on Microsoft and that's all I have known for over 30 years. And I can tell you that Microsoft is so powerful that they either copy the great ideas from others like Slack and some of the productivity apps, or they just buy the companies like they did Yammer. So you can't go wrong.
And LinkedIn.
And LinkedIn, yeah. So I'll answer Mel. So Mel's asking some questions. So yeah, you're spot on. Basically what you've got is Google's creating Google Workspace and Microsoft is Microsoft 365. And the way Google Workspace works right now is, yes, you would pull in outside software. So you would pull in Trello or Asana where Microsoft has Planner already built in the integration. You pull in Evernote in the Google environment where Microsoft has OneNote. So Microsoft kind of builds its own, and Google pulls in these disparate software apps. So we can't really, I don't think Google Drive is very robust at all personally. So I doubt it has any of these features, but if anybody's on the line that knows Google better than us, please chime in. So
I don't think it has the connectivity. I mean, definitely it has the file sharing, right? Because files are in the cloud. And, but if you really need to work in the cloud, I have a client right now, her company is all a Google Shop, and all their documents they work on them in the cloud. So the documents, the sheets, the slide shows, are all in the cloud, and they don't bring them down. If they did bring them down, they have to put them into a Microsoft product on the desktop and then go back up, and that does cause problems. It doesn't seem to have, as I've been working with a couple of clients, it doesn't seem to have this robust task management and helping keep people on track, as we can do, whether it's a SharePoint list and going that route that Arnie just went through, or whether it's using Planner, or even the to-do app that we've talked about before with shared list with 1 or 2 people or a small group of people, so that everybody keeps on track of it. So I mean, not that it's a horrible tool. Everybody in the world seems to have a Gmail account too. I just don't think it's, like both of them have said, I don't see it as robust. And my one client I was just working with, I mean, some of the things that she was trying to solve could have much more easily been solved with Microsoft than trying to find something to add in to the Google Shop.
And I think that the word disparate is what I consider Google Workspace, because you have to bring in so many disparate apps like Trello and Asana, and also in terms of Zoom even, because if you're, well, I think they have their own Google Meet. But I just feel that because there's so many people who are fragmented because they're using Gmail for their personal. And so because they're used to that, and they also teach Google Workspace in the school system. So a lot of the younger kids are coming up with experience and in the Google arena. So they just sort of go on board with that, thinking that's the solution, but they're not looking at what the problems are. And that would be collaboration is an issue. And I think that it just adds more dysfunction because everything's so disparate.
Oh, well said, Mel. If it's okay, I'm going to switch over kind of back to the EOS stuff. And Mel, let's keep asking questions if you have them, because that'd be great. But Tim, I'd be curious. I apologize for putting you on the spot here, but what's your takeaway on this? Does it feel like it would work for EOS? Or I know you're not shy, so I know I could call on you.
Yeah, no, I think the way that you've set it up is perfect link and match and synchronization or replication of the EOS tools, and how some of the EOS tools is actually one of the software packages that is out there. I'm trying to think of the other one. It's something 90.
Yeah, I don't know.
Can't remember offhand, but those are specific tools that are authorized and approved by EOS worldwide to be for people to use for EOS. But I've used it in a lot of cases, and I'm currently using it with just spreadsheets and tracking on that type of thing. So no, this looks great. It's a great way to one of the companies I'm working with now is going to be moving more towards using SharePoint. So that'll be a perfect segue to be able to set it up with those types of that type of structure.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
But one question I did have, Arnie, that in the, I believe it was section 6, issues and opportunities, you said it's pulling from all different types of places where there's different issues and lists and tasks and that type of thing to pull it into one reporting system. As you're going through your weekly meeting, can you just add in and edit in to the list of issues and talk about, okay, we discussed this one, made this decision, this action comes out of it, and it rolls over into a task for somebody and that type of thing right within the meeting?
Right, yes. on the higher ups, where you review measures, goals and all that in a meeting, you're not really going to be changing those, but you can get to them to change them. But on the tasks and the issues and opportunities part of it, as you said, I did include the toolbar on each of those. You may not have noticed it, but there is a new button, plus you can edit the items right in the agenda. You don't have to leave, you don't have to leave the web page.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I see Mel also made a comment earlier in the chat. I feel the gap in why SharePoint is not being used for its capacity because it requires a communication plan and also requires a greater scope of tech skills to develop. SharePoint's getting easier and easier all the time to administer, but you hit upon a good point. If you're going to be successful in SharePoint and Teams especially, you've got to have two things in addition to the tech skills. The tech skills, that again, it's easy to administer SharePoint, but that's also a bad thing because you can build a real mess that's hard to straighten up later. So the two things that you've got to have for successful implementation are, number one, a plan, preferably by someone who's been there, done that, and knows the pitfalls to building things in a certain way that, you know, it may seem like you need to build it a certain way. Common sense tells you that, but someone who's been there, done that says, no, this is not your father's Microsoft product. This is different. Here's why you don't need to do this. Here's a better way. But the other thing, which is huge, I often say 365 is not a training issue because it is very intuitive for end users. You don't have to train people on SharePoint or Teams. You just have to put the expectation out there of how it is to be used. They'll figure it out when they get into it if it's built right. But 365 implementation is not a training issue. It is a leadership issue. You don't want IT to own your 365 environment. They just keep it running. The people who should own your 365 environment are the managers, the people, the business who says, I want it this way to match my business. And they call the shots. And then IT just keeps, and now that it's in the cloud, if you use a SharePoint Online in 365, IT just doesn't have to do a lot because Microsoft's taking care of the back end for the most part. You need someone like our teammate Rafe who makes sure you're in compliance and sets the security up and customizes it to your needs in that way. But as far as keeping the servers running and all that, that's on Microsoft, which is a great part of the cloud. So Nancy, chime in if I left anything.
No, that's awesome. And Mel responded to me directly, but I think she meant it for the group when it's a great saying. She said, I see that there's a difference between driving the bus and building the bus. It's a perfect analogy to that. Yeah. And I guess just to explain sort of how we work with clients, yeah, often we're coming in and we're helping design, understanding from a business perspective what they're trying to do and understanding the technology. But our ultimate goal is to hand the technology over and have trained their individuals to be able to use it after the fact. So a lot of people don't have this level of expertise, but we can easily train them. So
That's great.
Great questions. Mel, any more questions or anybody else on the line about, this topic in particular, or if there's no topics, anything about this, then anything else is bring it on.
In terms of the business, I mean, there's so many different sizes and shapes, and there's also with COVID, there's so much collaboration outside your tenant, your 365 tenant. Mm-hmm. And so then you could still benefit from SharePoint, but then it involves bringing people who aren't in your tenant. It just adds a lot of additional layers of complexity in terms of building the bus, I guess. Driving it once it's set up isn't a problem, but then it's getting involved with the administration and back end. So do you help clients in different business models determine how they could use SharePoint in collaborating inside their tenant and outside their tenant?
Yeah, 100%. Marty, I don't know if you want to expand on it, but.
Yeah, I was just trying to process the scenario. Yeah, SharePoint, Teams is easy to get external collaborators included. SharePoint is not difficult. It's just, it's a little bit, it's one step maybe more difficult, but it can be done. But it depends on the process, and that's why I say you've got to analyze the process with 365 in the back of your mind so that you meet those needs. But I know, for example, in Teams, by the way, FYI, Teams is SharePoint. SharePoint is what Teams is built upon. When you use the Files tab in Teams, it is SharePoint. So SharePoint is behind the scenes, and you can roll SharePoint into Teams. So getting someone into Teams is not too difficult, and Microsoft keeps promising us an update. I think Nancy said it's coming in April or May, where shared channels will be a thing, and it'll be somewhat less, but it'll be quite a bit less work to include external contributors. So
Right, yeah, I just read, I think they're going to start rolling it out the end of March.
awesome.
And the shared channels are going to be similar to a private channel in that it creates a separate SharePoint site, which has a separate security group. So you know right away that when you create that, you can just invite whoever you invite. That's all they have access to. They don't have access to anything else that's on there. So, and the nice thing about it is that, Mel, if you invited me into a shared channel, it shows up in my Teams, in my tenant, and I do not have to change tenants to go and see that shared channel. So that's going to be really exciting. I haven't seen it in action yet, but I keep reading about it, and I can't wait to see it and be able to play with it.
Yeah, they promised it in November to start with, and I thought, oh my gosh, every time we work with a client, we will just share a channel of our Teams with them, and we will walk the talk. We'll practice what we preach, and all conversations with our clients will be done in Teams, and no more emails, which is awesome.
Dang, why don't you explain what a tenant is? Because there's probably some people on the call that are like, what the heck is a tenant?
A tenant is really how I think of it. Very simplistically, is it your domain name? So you have your email address that says at whatever your company name is, that is your tenant. And so whatever your company name is one tenant, my company is another tenant, Jan's and Arnie's are different tenants. So this will allow essentially that shared channel to be brought into my Teams environment without me having to switch over to Arnie's team environment to see those chats and all that information.
Yeah, and really switching tenants is not all that difficult, but for computer challenged end users, you know, it's one extra step that you don't want them to have to figure out. So it's going to really eliminate only one step in the process, but it's a huge step that might boggle the mind of someone who maybe isn't that well versed on a computer.
Awesome. Any other questions? We've got like 1 minute left. So any other comments, questions? Arnie did a rock star job. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
I posted in the chat all the links again for the upcoming webinars, past recordings, the YouTube channel.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Hope to see you next month. And Tim, so glad you were on the call. That's perfect.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
glad to be
thank you.
here. Thank
Yeah,
you,
thanks. Great
Jan,
questions,
Nancy,
Mel.
and Arnie.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you. Have a
everyone.
good day,
Hi,
everyone.
everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.